For more than 3 decades, one man stood at the center of power in Iran. His name was Ali Khamenei. He became Iran's supreme leader in 1989 after the death of Ruhollah Khomeini, the leader of the Iranian Revolution. This revolution had transformed Iran from a monarchy ruled by the Shah into an Islamic republic. As supreme leader, Khamenei was not just a political leader. He was the most powerful authority in the country. He controlled the military, influenced the courts, and guided Iran's foreign policy. During his rule, Iran went through many difficult periods. There were international sanctions, economic struggles, and growing tensions with Western countries. Despite this pressure, Khamenei remained firmly in power. Under his leadership, Iran strengthened its alliances in the Middle East. Groups supported by Iran became active in places like Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. This made Iran a powerful but controversial player in global politics. At the same time, relations between Iran and countries such as United States and Israel became increasingly hostile. Over time, these tensions would slowly move the world toward a dangerous confrontation. And in early 2026, that confrontation would reach a shocking climax. The years leading up to 2026 were filled with growing conflict in the Middle East. Iran and Israel had been enemies for decades. Israel viewed Iran's nuclear program as a major threat. Iranian leaders, including Khamenei, frequently criticized Israel and supported groups that opposed it. Meanwhile, the United States accused Iran of destabilizing the region. American officials believed Iran was supplying weapons and support to armed groups across the Middle East. Several incidents increased tensions even more. There were attacks on military bases, cyber operations, and secret intelligence missions. Many experts began to warn that a direct confrontation could happen at any time. Inside Iran, the government also faced internal pressure. Economic sanctions had weakened the country's economy. Inflation was high, and many young Iranians were frustrated with the political system. Despite these challenges, the Iranian leadership continued to show strength on the international stage. Then, in February 2026, intelligence reports began circulating about a possible military operation that could change everything. On the night of February 28, 2026, explosions shook the city of Tehran. Residents reported hearing loud blasts and seeing flashes in the sky. Air defense systems were activated across the capital. Within minutes, panic began spreading through the city. According to early reports, several high-precision strikes had targeted important government and military locations. These included facilities linked to Iran's military leadership. One of the targets was believed to be a compound connected to the office of the supreme leader. News spread quickly across international media. Officials in Iran initially provided little information. The government urged citizens to remain calm while emergency teams rushed to the affected areas. But rumors were already circulating across social media. Some reports claimed that a high-level meeting had been taking place at the time of the strike, and at the center of those rumors was the name of Iran's most powerful leader, Ali Khamenei. As the sun began to rise over the city of Tehran, confusion and fear spread across the country. For several hours after the explosions, the government released almost no information. Television channels continued normal programming, while officials tried to understand what had happened. But rumors were spreading rapidly. Social media platforms were filled with messages claiming that the strike had targeted the residence of Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. Some posts suggested he had been injured. Others claimed something far more serious. Then, several hours later, Iranian state television interrupted its broadcast with an emergency announcement. A senior government spokesperson appeared on screen. His voice was calm but heavy. He confirmed what many people had already feared. Ali Khamenei was dead. According to the official statement, the supreme leader had been killed during a precision strike that hit a secured compound where he had been present earlier that night. Several other senior officials were also reported dead. The announcement stunned the nation. For more than 3 decades, Khamenei had been the most powerful figure in Iran. Since becoming supreme leader in 1989, he had shaped nearly every major decision in the country. Many Iranians had grown up knowing no other leader in that role. Within minutes of the announcement, large crowds began gathering in different cities. In some places, people stood in silence. In others, groups mourned openly, holding candles and portraits of the leader. The Iranian government declared several days of national mourning. Flags were lowered across the country. Religious leaders called for prayers in mosques. At the same time, security forces moved quickly to secure key locations in Tehran and other major cities. Military units were placed on high alert. International reactions began pouring in almost immediately. Governments around the world expressed concern about the potential consequences of such a dramatic event. Many leaders called for calm and warned that further violence could push the region toward a much larger conflict. Meanwhile, questions began to dominate global headlines. Who carried out the strike? How had one of the most heavily protected leaders in the world been targeted successfully? And perhaps most importantly, what would happen next inside Iran? For a nation that had been guided by the same supreme leader for over 30 years, the future suddenly looked uncertain. The death of Ali Khamenei marked the end of an era, but it also opened the door to a new and unpredictable chapter in Iran's history. News of the death of Ali Khamenei spread around the world within hours. Television networks switched to breaking news coverage. Governments held emergency meetings. Analysts and political experts began discussing what the event might mean for global stability. The Middle East, already one of the most tense regions in the world, suddenly faced a new and dangerous moment. Countries across the region increased their military readiness. Defense systems were activated, and air forces were placed on standby. Leaders feared that retaliation from Iran could come quickly. Inside Iran, military commanders spoke strongly about the country's right to respond. Officials warned that those responsible for the attack would face consequences. These statements were broadcast repeatedly on national television, sending a clear message both to the Iranian people and to the outside world. Meanwhile, international diplomats began urgent efforts to prevent the situation from escalating further. The United Nations called for restraint from all sides. Several world leaders urged dialogue instead of conflict. Behind closed doors, governments were working intensely to avoid a wider war. The economic impact was also immediate. Global oil markets reacted quickly to the news. Prices began rising as traders worried about possible disruptions in the Middle East, a region responsible for a large share of the world's energy supply. Stock markets in several countries showed signs of uncertainty as investors tried to understand what might happen next. Political analysts pointed out that the death of such a powerful leader could create a moment of instability not only inside Iran, but also across the region. For decades, Khamenei had been the central figure guiding Iran's strategy and foreign policy. His decisions had shaped the country's relationships with both allies and enemies. Without him, no one knew exactly how Iran's leadership would respond. Would the country choose a path of retaliation? Or would its leaders focus on internal stability during the transition? The world watched closely as Iran began entering a new phase of uncertainty. The next few days would be critical in determining whether the region would move toward peace or deeper conflict. The death of Ali Khamenei marked the beginning of one of the most uncertain periods in the modern history of Iran. For more than 3 decades, Khamenei had stood at the very center of power in the Islamic Republic. His influence extended across every major institution in the country, from the military to the judiciary, from religious leadership to foreign policy. His authority shaped the direction of the nation. With his sudden death, the country was forced to confront a future without the man who had guided it for more than 30 years. For millions of Iranians, the moment felt like the closing of a long and powerful chapter in their history. Many citizens had lived their entire lives under his leadership, and the idea of Iran without Khamenei seemed almost unimaginable. In Iran's political system, the position of supreme leader is the most powerful role in the country. Unlike many other governments where the president or prime minister holds the highest authority, Iran's system places ultimate power in the hands of the supreme leader. This position oversees the armed forces, influences the country's judiciary, and holds strong control over key national institutions. When Khamenei became supreme leader in 1989, after the death of Ruhollah Khomeini, he inherited a nation still shaped by the powerful legacy of the Iranian Revolution. Over the following decades, he strengthened his influence and built a leadership system that revolved heavily around his guidance and authority. With his death, attention quickly shifted to the body responsible for choosing the next supreme leader. This group is known as the Assembly of Experts. The Assembly of Experts is made up of senior Islamic scholars who are elected to monitor the leadership of the supreme leader and, when necessary, choose a successor. Their role is extremely important in the political structure of Iran. After the death of Khamenei, this council suddenly carried the responsibility of deciding who would become the next most powerful figure in the country. The decision they would make could shape the future of Iran for decades. Inside the halls of Iran's political and religious institutions, discussions about the country's future began almost immediately. Different factions within the political system held different ideas about what direction the country should take. Some believed that the next leader should closely follow the path that Khamenei had established. These individuals argued that stability was the most important priority, especially during such a tense moment in the country's history. They believed Iran needed strong leadership that would continue defending the country's political system and its regional influence. Others, however, believed that the country was entering a moment that might require new thinking and possible adjustments. Over the years, Iran had faced many economic challenges, partly due to international sanctions and global political tensions. Many younger citizens had grown increasingly frustrated with economic difficulties and limited opportunities. Some analysts believe that the next leader might consider gradual reforms in order to address these internal pressures. While these debates unfolded behind closed doors, the Iranian public watched closely. Across the country, conversations about the future of leadership took place in homes, markets, universities, and workplaces. Some citizens worried about instability during the transition period. Others hoped that new leadership could bring positive changes to the country's economic and political environment. At the same time, Iran's military and security institutions focused on maintaining stability. The armed forces remained on high alert, especially given the tense international environment that followed the death of the supreme leader. Commanders emphasized the importance of national unity and warned that any attempt to exploit the moment of transition would be met with a strong response. Beyond Iran's borders, governments around the world were carefully watching every development. The leadership transition in Iran had the potential to affect international politics in significant ways. Iran plays a major role in the geopolitics of the Middle East, and the policies of its leadership influence conflicts, alliances, and diplomatic negotiations across the region. For decades, Khamenei had been known for his firm stance on issues involving countries such as the United States and Israel. His policies had shaped Iran's foreign relations and determined how the country interacted with the rest of the world.
For the people of Iran and for observers around the world,
In the days following the death of Ali Khamenei, political discussions inside Iran became more intense as leaders began quietly debating who might become the next supreme leader. Members of the Assembly of Experts held private meetings to evaluate possible candidates who had strong religious authority and political influence. At the same time, government institutions focused on keeping the country stable and preventing unrest. Many citizens closely followed the news, wondering whether the new leadership would continue the same policies or introduce gradual changes that could improve the economy, reduce tensions abroad, and shape a different future for Iran. As the leadership transition continued, attention remained focused on the role of the Assembly of Experts, the body responsible for selecting the next supreme leader of Iran. The members of this council carefully discussed several respected religious figures who had the experience and authority to lead the nation. At the same time, political leaders emphasized unity and stability during this sensitive moment. Many citizens watched closely, hoping the transition would be peaceful and orderly. The selection of a successor to Ali Khamenei would not only determine Iran's internal leadership but could also influence the country's future relationships with the rest of the world. As the process moved forward, the future of Iran depended heavily on the decision that would soon be made by the Assembly of Experts. The successor to Ali Khamenei would inherit a nation facing many challenges, including economic pressure, regional tensions, and the expectations of a young population seeking opportunity. The new leader would need to balance religious authority with political stability while guiding Iran through a rapidly changing world. Whatever decision was made would shape the direction of the country for many years. For Iran and for the international community, the next chapter of leadership was about to begin.